Welcome to the Peaceful Entrepreneur Podcast, where together we're learning how to have peace in the process of everyday business ownership by improving one step at a time how we think and what we do. I'm your host, Amy Stout. Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Season 3 of The Peaceful Entrepreneur. I am so excited to be here with you today because if you don't know already, we actually launched Season 3 on YouTube. So you can watch me right now in real time on YouTube. So if you want to do that, the link will be in the description. But I am so excited to bring this video component to the podcast. I'm the proponent of baby steps, right? So I didn't start the podcast till 2 years into business. I took my time. I thought about it for a while before I did it too. And I bit off what I felt like I could chew, like I just did the first 20 episodes audio only, and that felt manageable. And now I feel like we're at a place that doing the video feels manageable. It doesn't feel like a heavy lift. And so here we are, we're doing it. And so welcome. You can see my makeshift set. One day we'll have a pristine podcast set. But hey, this works great for now. So welcome back. Thank you for being here. We are on our 21st episode. This is our 21st episode. We are at 1,200 plays, and I am just so grateful for everybody who has listened, who has tuned in, who has shared how this has encouraged you. So I just wanted to take a quick moment. If you haven't left your feedback on the Apple Podcasts app, we would love it if you would leave us a review. We currently have 16, and I have it in my head. I think it would be a cool milestone to hit 50 ratings by our 50th episode. And I think we can absolutely do that. So leave us a review, leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts. On Spotify, feel free to also leave us a rating. You just can't type out your review, but we have 12 over there, so we'd love to get that up as well. So let's go ahead and jump into today's episode. It's kind of fitting that this is the first episode of Season 3 because we're talking about how to start your business peacefully. So I am not one to have regrets. I am not about looking back and wishing things were different. I don't think it's worth spending our mental energy on because things are how they are. I also trust that everything I've gone through has been for a purpose, even if it hasn't been enjoyable. It's for a purpose because God has brought me to where I am today through all those little steps. So I'm not going to look back and regret anything. But that doesn't mean I can't look back and give advice based on my experience. So that's what I want to do with you today. I started my business 2.5 years ago. And so I am by no means an expert, but I do have some experience under my belt. And there are some things that I would do the same if I were to start over. And there are some things that I would do differently if I were to start over. And that's kind of the format that I'm going to take today and share with you. So today we're going to talk about tips for how to start your business and establish a peaceful undertone from the beginning. Because I do believe that's possible. You can have peace from the very beginning. And like I always say, peace and balance isn't a state that you will find and stay in. We're kind of in and out of it. But as long as you are learning, and that's kind of what I want to talk about on this podcast, is how in each of these specific situations do we learn how to respond and get back to a place of peacefulness and contentedness when things get a little bit crazy. So let's start today with what I would do the same if I were to start all over again. One thing I did, which this is just my personality, but when I first got my business idea, I dove into research for a solid month. And that doesn't even sound like that long, but I researched the heck out of this business idea. to flesh it out and figure out exactly what I wanted to do. And so I would definitely recommend you doing your research, looking around at different types of online businesses, or whatever kind of business you want to have. Look around at the ways different people are doing things, see what you gravitate towards, see what you don't like, that you don't want to follow. The next thing after doing your research is don't hold yourself back. Like, go ahead and take action. I think that there's a balance with this. It's hard because for me, I am more prone to get the idea and act quickly. Other people I know would just sit on the idea for 6 months and not do anything. So where's the middle ground? How can we consider carefully everything that we want out of this business and take the time to thoroughly think it through and make a plan, but then also not lose momentum and go ahead and act when we're excited about it? So my biggest advice to you is, because I know probably most people are not like me, my biggest advice to you is just do it. You're never going to feel fully ready. That's like anything in life, right? Marriage, kids. You're never going to feel fully ready. But, once you have your ground laid and established, just go ahead and start. Because it took me about a month to start, which, hey, I'm glad I did. It was in the middle of COVID. Time is wonky, Maybe I could have used a little bit more time to establish things, but it worked out fine, obviously. And then off of that same thing, I kind of already said this. Act while you're feeling inspired. That is how I try to operate with any of my creative things in business, whether that is creating something for this podcast, creating something for social media, creating a new aspect of my business. Act when you're excited about it. For example, I think I've shared this on the podcast before, but as soon as I finish an episode, I'll go ahead and write all of the promo copy for email, social media, and description because it's in my head. I'm excited. I just talked about it. And that's so much easier than trying to get your brain back into that place 5 days later, The next thing I would recommend that I did is take a risk. It is a jump to start a business. It's never going to be the safe bet, but it will pay off. So for us, we were in the middle of COVID. We were a year into COVID, and Luke thankfully had a full-time job that could sustain us while I took the leap. And so it's important to have a safety net, but don't be afraid to take the leap because you never know where it might land you. The next thing I would recommend that I'm really glad I did is to gather a support system. I really don't think I could have done it without my support system. So, of course, the first person I told was Luke when I got this idea. And I literally remember the moment. I was sitting on the couch looking at him in our little hallway and right behind me, right here. And I remember saying hey, I got this idea. What would you think about me going for it? And he was like, yeah, do it. And I told my parents, and I was scared to tell my parents because this is not what I studied in school. And so I felt like I was going to disappoint them if I did something different. But again, they were also supportive. So were my friends. So tell your people, have people around you to encourage you because it's not always going to be easy. And so it's great to have people there with you to support you when it's challenging and to celebrate with you when things go well. Okay, this is a little bit of a hot take. This has been mentioned in previous episodes. I would recommend to wait to do your formal branding and professional photos. And the only reason I say that, don't do them right away because you learn so much about yourself in the first 6 to 12 months of business. And I changed the whole business name, and the vibe of the branding. And I just got so much more clarity. And so I actually waited a year to do my first branding shoot, which I don't think you need to wait a certain amount of time, but I would just say wait until you've played around with enough that you feel settled and right. So I waited a year for my branding shoot and I waited 2 years for formal branding. I did my own branding for the first 2 years. So I had it, but I didn't pay someone a large amount for it until 2 years in. And now I can confidently say that I know my vibe. I know the branding that I want. The branding that I have, I will keep. Like it feels solid. It feels permanent. It doesn't feel like something that I'm going to want to change. And I would hate to have, paid over a $1,000 for something 6 months in and then wanted to change it, like that just, yeah. Okay. The next thing is I kind of just established my systems as I went, as I learned what I needed, as my business developed, kind of as it called for needing a system, I created the appropriate system. And so that was great. It was like little building blocks. So I guess this might be a word to the perfectionists, the people who want to have everything right away. That is me, like everything perfect set up immediately at the beginning. That is just not life. So just build them as you go. Be perceptive to what your business needs. I'll give you an example. For us, when I was working completely on my own, I just had my own like task list in probably Notion or something that was just for me. And I just kept track of everything that I needed to do. When I had my first contractor on, I think I kept notes of what she was responsible for, but we didn't have like a shared task management software. But as I started adding more and more contractors, more and more clients, I was like, okay, I need a system where everybody can see what's going on and know where we're at in the process of whatever project we're working on. So at that point, I was like, okay, I need to research and figure out what task management system is going to be best for us. I found one, I landed on it, I set it up, and now it's our little system, and it works for everybody. And so now when we get new clients, new contractors, we just bring them into the pre-established system, and it's great. And you might need to change your systems. Like I kind of created my own bookkeeping and financial management system that I've been doing on my own. But now I am about to move into a stage where I outsource my bookkeeping. And so that is going to necessitate a new system, which is great because as we grow and as we change, we might need to tweak things. So that's what I mean. Okay, this is something that I'm going to star and come back to later, but something that I would do the same and do more of if I were to start over is to trust my gut when it comes to my clients. And what I mean by that is I usually can sense if someone's going to be a good fit pretty quickly after I meet them. And I think a couple of times I kind of ignored it and was like, it'll be fine. Ended up later having to break up and, end the client relationship. And so time and time again, my gut has always been right. So I would do the same thing. I would trust my gut when it comes to telling if a client's the right fit. And I'm going to go into this. I have another solo episode later this season called How to Break Up with a Client, because that's just like a natural part of business. All of us are going to have to do it at one point or another, but how do we do it gracefully and how do we keep the relationship intact? So I'm going to be talking about that later in the season. The next thing that I would do the same is have confidence in myself. I think that is one of the actual keys to success in business. Mindset is so much bigger of a deal than we realize. And this, of course, applies to all of life, but especially in business. You are your business. Your brain is the driving force behind your business. So if you're not in a healthy place and if you're not believing in yourself, of course your business isn't going to succeed or, get to where you want it to go. You have to believe that it will get to where you want it to go. And that doesn't mean that you won't have moments of doubt, because I have had plenty of moments of what if everybody just leaves? Or I don't know. What if, I think I have a little bit of really high expectations and believe in myself for those. And then sometimes I'm like, wait, are my dreams too big? Do I need to chill out? But I don't think that's a bad thing. Dream big, believe in yourself. You'll get there. I'm not one for manifesting, but I think it's a difference between manifesting and just having a confident attitude and mindset, not prideful, but just confident. And now I'm rambling a little bit, but confidence as well comes from trust and faith in the Lord, because I can be more confident in myself when I realize that I'm actually not the one controlling the outcome. I think you can doubt yourself a lot more when it's all up to you, you know? And so the more that I hand over the results of my business to God, the more confidence I have, because I trust that He has my best interests at heart, and I trust that He is the one in control, and He will make things go the direction they need to go. So I don't need to worry. The last thing that I would do the same is take the next right step. And this is kind of something I've already been talking about, but just do the next right thing. Shout out Emily P. Freeman. She has a great podcast called The Next Right Thing. But and this is preaching to myself too, like you don't have to always be thinking 5 steps ahead. Just determine what the next right thing to do is and take that step. And then take the next right step. Like don't overcomplicate it. Don't overthink it. Like just stay present as much as you possibly can and take the next right step. Okay, now we're going to dive into what I do differently. This is a little juicier, I guess. But I realized as I was writing all of these down, these are all things that I have done. I just wish I would have done them sooner. So that is kind of the direction I'm going with this. The first thing is decide on a niche more quickly. And I did talk about this. There's an episode in season 1, episode 7, is called Save Yourself a Lot of Stress by Doing This, which this is finding your niche. I have a niche, but I still do a lot of things. So sometimes I'm like, do I need to do less? But I have my niche of here's the type of people that I work with, and here's what I do for them, and here's how I do it. You need to eventually find that out. Of course, you're probably not going to know that right off the bat when you start your business. So it's okay if you don't immediately have one. Maybe you need to do some experimenting first and just like figure out what you like, because what you think you might like might not be what you actually like, So take your time to explore. But I think I took longer than I needed to. I probably took a year. And I don't think you need that long. So niche down quicker. It will lead to greater clarity and peace of mind for you. It will lead to more business because clients will be more clear on what you can do for them. And it will lead to more income because you can get really good at one thing and just do that really well for a bunch of people. And that'll help you grow so much faster than like, I do this for this person and this for that person. And my marketing is, your messaging then is unclear because then people are like, well, she does this, but she also does this. And, so it's actually going to be better. And go listen to episode 7 because we talked in detail about this because I know it feels limiting. It feels like, well, why would I just pick one thing? Like that's going to limit my business. It's actually going to be the opposite. So next thing is I would do this that I would do differently, that I would do sooner, is be more selective about the clients that you take on. Like I said, and this is specifically, I guess, for service-based businesses, but like I said, I have a pretty strong gut feeling. And I just need to listen to that more often. And I think one really helpful thing that I learned in coaching, along with writing down the profession of the clients that you want to work with, write down the characteristics that you look for. Of like, these are the kind of people that I work well with. Is it people that are like, I wrote down words like communicative and I don't even know what else, like responsible, kind, affirming, not micromanaging. I do not like working with like people who are like, oh, can you change that and do this? And blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm like, just trust us to do our thing. We'll do it well, I promise. But that's something that I personally prefer. So write that down early on and don't be afraid to tell a client that you don't think you're a good match. There's nothing wrong with that. Nobody's fault. We're just two people, and I've identified that we're different, and we're not going to move forward. So just be more selective. Don't take on a client just because it means more money for you. Don't. Because if they're not the right fit, it'll cause so much headache. They'll take up so much brain space that they'll take away from you being able to build your business more because you're too worried about them. And then it's not worth the money that they're bringing on. You feel? Like they'll hold you back from making even more. Okay, I could go on a tangent. Next thing I would do is be wary of where I'm spending my energy. This is something I didn't get a handle on until earlier this year, 2 years in. And so I wish I would have done it sooner. But if you are not intentional to assess where your energy and brain power is going and be very careful with it, stuff will just take over. I mean, I went from meetings every single day of the week, probably 2, sometimes 3 a day. I was lucky if I got one free day, 2 meetings pretty much only on one day of the week. And I just stack like 8 in that day because I can do that. But I know some people couldn't. But you wouldn't think it was possible. It's like, how am I going to fit all of this into one day? You just do. Like, you just draw the boundary and then it works. And so I was spreading my energy across so many different tasks every single day. And not only was I not productive because I was having to switch brain modes all the time, but I was also wearing myself out from doing all that switching. Like, you are not only going to be more efficient and productive, but your brain will be happier and clearer because you can determine like Mondays, I'm going to just do this thing and I'm going to focus my energy on that all day and then I'm going to be done. And then Tuesdays is a different thing and Wednesdays is a different thing. Just be intentional about how you're spending your time, because I guess what I'm trying to say is you have full control. You might not feel like you do because, like I said, the tasks and the calendar items will take over if you don't take control of them, just like social media. If you don't take control and draw your boundaries, it's going to take over, right? Because it's an addictive thing. Same, not that your tasks and calendar is addictive, but like it's a beast, right? So you have the responsibility to tame it, and you actually have a lot more control than you think you do. Okay, next one. Similar vein, draw boundaries sooner. I was texting my clients for the first probably year, if not more. Just texting on my personal phone. I don't think I had any limits on my Instagram, so I was on Instagram, like scrolling while I went to bed. Who needs to be thinking about that while you're trying to fall asleep? I didn't have any, like I said, boundaries with when I took meetings versus when I did my tasks. And so everything was just all over the place. And I ended up working, and like I said, things started to take over. And so I want to do a boundaries series on here. The reason I haven't gotten into a boundaries episode yet is because it's just such a big topic that it can't just be one episode. But I want to talk more about boundaries. But just to keep it short, draw them. Figure out what you need. When are you going to start and stop work? How are you going to separate your personal from your work communication? What is your communication going to look like with your clients? To name a few. I mean, there's a bunch. How are you going to limit your social media usage? Like, think about that now. Go ahead and set it now. You'll thank me later. Okay, this is something that I wish I would have done sooner. Obviously, it kind of makes sense that I didn't do it sooner because COVID, but I would start doing in-person networking sooner. Because, oh my goodness, getting face-to-face in front of someone is the most valuable connection that you can make. Now, I will say referrals, amazing. Someone giving you an endorsement will exponentially multiply the possibility of you signing that new client because someone that they trust endorses you. So that aside, making an in-person connection with somebody is so much more valuable than just an Instagram DM. Like, yes, Instagram DMs, emails, whatever, can be effective, are effective for many people, but you just can't beat just a normal human interaction, you know? So when I started going to different networking groups and different like women business owner events and things like that, like I have just seen so much more real response from people because they actually connect with who you are as a person. You get to interface, you get to have a conversation, and that is going to connect so much more and cement so much more in someone's brain. So don't not do the rest of your stuff, but integrate the in-person marketing in. I already went on my little referrals tangent. I would ask for referrals sooner than I did. I don't think I started asking for referrals for at least a year and a half. So once you have shown your clients that you're trustworthy and you do good work, start asking them for people that they would refer you to. I mean, just go ahead and do it, because that is the best way to get another client, the best way. Okay, the last one is I would make entrepreneur friends sooner. Again, hearkening back to episode 6, why you can't do entrepreneurship by yourself. It is so important to have community as a business owner because it's a lonely game out here. It is. And it is so easy to feel isolated in this situation. And so make friends who are in the same stage as you, make friends who are ahead of you, behind you, get a mentor, get a coach. Like, you need people around you. And the difference is you have to seek it out, because in a normal job, they're just going to be there. But for us, we have to seek it out, and you will not regret it. My morale, like my well-being has increased so much just having people. Like, I still have my 2 girls that I talked about back in season 1. We are still just as close, and we will vox each other, just being like, hey, I've got this going on. Can you pray for me real quick? Or, just things like that. And it is so, so wonderful to have that community. So why do I say all of this? I think that if you do these things, they'll bring you more peace as you start your business. I really do. I don't think any of them is this revolutionary, secret to things. But like I always say, the little steps, the little pieces that you put in place are going to add up. And if you start on the right foundation and with the right habits, you're going to be so much happier down the line, because you've already established a healthy way of operating your business, rather than if you just started off and you weren't intentional about doing things like this, you're going to get a year in and be overwhelmed, and then you're going to have to reprogram everything. It's so much easier to just start well from the beginning. So I just encourage you, if you are starting your business now, this is my advice. If you want to talk more, DMs are open on Instagram at The Peaceful Entrepreneur. And if you're interested, I'd also love to hear, if you're an experienced business owner, what would you add to this? What have you found successful? So feel free to share that in the comments of the promo post for this episode. But for those just starting out, if you're ready to start to get practical, I want to point you to my business brain dump worksheet that is linked in every single description of the podcast. It's also in both of my Instagram link in bios, but it is my free business brain dump worksheet, and it takes you through the foundational questions that you need to ask yourself and process and reflect on as you're starting. Things like, what is the mission of your business? What are your values? What are these foundational things? And not only does it have that exercise, but I also have 2 really helpful lists at the end. The first one is all the logistical annoying things that you need to think about when you start your business. I went ahead and thought through all of it for you. So it's things like get an LLC, get a bank account, blah, blah, blah. So there's a list of those things that you can just check off. And then the second list is a bunch of different marketing strategies, different things that you can put in place to start marketing. So I've just brainstormed a bunch of them, and you can kind of pick, don't do all of them at once, but pick what feels right for your business. Start little by little, pick 2 or 3, right? And then gradually add more on, like I was talking about at the beginning of this episode. So would love for you to download that, would love to hear what you think. And again, would love it if you'd leave a review, especially on Apple Podcasts, and share with me what you thought of today's episode. If you like the fact that we're on YouTube, let me know. Leave me a comment on YouTube. Oh, that's exciting. I've watched YouTube for a decade, and now I'm on YouTube. Who would have thought? Okay, anyways, that's it for today. I'm so excited to jump into season 3. I have some amazing guests and interviews lined up for this season. And of course, another happy hour with Luke and I. So cannot wait to jump in. I will see you guys next week. Thank you so much for joining us for today's episode. Don't forget to connect with us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. And we would love it if you would leave a review wherever you're listening. We'll see you next week for more tips for how to become a peaceful entrepreneur.